Alright boys and girls, welcome back to another episode 32 to be exact, and this will be a wild one. A lot of deep stacked hands, big pots and overall crazy action again at this €2 blind game, but as you guys already know, this game doesn't play like a €2 blind game, more like a €5 or €10 big blind game. A lot of straddles and restraddles again in this episode, and yeah, we start this session shortly past 8 with €300 in our stack, but it doesn't take too much time before we have to add on, but let's go into the action. Let's go into the first hand. To spice things up a little more in this game, there is a random hand jackpot going on, so we draw 2 cards that build a hand, and if you win a pot with this hand, you get an extra €50. It's not so easy this time because we draw the good old Doyle Brunson hand 10 deuce. So, only 10 minutes go by and we pick up 10 deuce offsuit in the low jack. So let's go for the bounty guys, huh? It folds to me and I raise to 7, the hijack behind me and the big blind call, and we see a flop 3 ways. The flop comes queen, queen 4 with 2 clubs and the big blind checks to me. I c-bet for 15, keep it on the smaller side because this board is relatively dry. Only the hijack decides to call and we go heads up to a turn and the dealer brings in the 4 of hearts. Bringing in the second and backdoor flush draw, but that's not important to me. I want to take this pot down immediately and I c-bet again for 30. My opponent in the hijack snap folds and we take it down with 10 deuce. Of course we show it and we get an extra €50 because of the random jackpot hand. Off to a good start once again. I think you only love me 'cause I'm popping. This a layup, this a rebound. You will not believe it, but the next draw of the random jackpot hand is 10 deuce again. Never mind, 5 minutes later we pick up a playable hand in form of ace 10 offsuit. I'm in first position and I raise it to 7. The low jack and the hijack are the only callers and we go 3 ways to a flop of queen 10 8. We all agree to check this flop and we see the ace of diamonds on the turn, giving us 2 pair, but the board gets more and more wet. There's a backdoor flush draw on the board now and some straights got there, but anyway, I think I have to bet here and I bet 15. The low jack behind me min clicks it back to 30. Okay, I already have the calling chips in hand I guess, but then the hijack called 3 bets to 85. Okay guys, keep it calm. I think 2 pair aren't no good after this action, so I fold my hand. Not really sure if that's a mistake, but that seems too strong to me. Unfortunately, the low jack behind me snap folds as well and we never know what the hijack player had. That's poker sometimes. Let's go on to the next one. We are picking up a lot of playable hands early on because in the very next hand we pick up pocket 9s in the big blind. There's an under the gun straddle to 5 and a middle position player who is very loose makes it 40 to go. Usually I think I would 3-bet with this hand in this position, but since he makes it 8 big blinds to go, I decide on a call and we are heads up to a flop of king 6-5 rainbow. I check to my opponent and he c-bets for 35 and I think for only 1 bet I can't fold my pair here, so I call and we see an unfortunate turn in form of the ace of clubs. I check to my opponent once again and he keeps betting for 75. This runout really isn't in favor for my hand and I have to fold, and my opponent is kind enough to show and he shows us pocket jacks. Alright, this time he got us, but we will get revenge and in many big pots versus this player again. After rewatching my notes in this one, I'm not really sure what's going through my mind, but let's see yourselves. We are in the +2 position with king jack offsuit. The player before me, who is a loose aggressive one, raises to 7. Usually if there's an early position open, king jack is a clear fold. A call would be a mistake to 100%, but there's another option. To 3-bet. That's the route I choose to and I 3-bet to 20. It folds to the button who cold calls 20 and of course that invites the +1 player who calls the 20 as well. So we go 3 ways in a bloated pot already to a flop of queen jack 9 rainbow. The +1 player checks to me and on this board I think I should check a lot of the time because it's definitely in favor of the cold calling and +1 calling range. But anyway, I decide to c-bet because I don't want to give up the betting lead and put some pressure on lower middling pocket pairs. Something like that, and the +1 player could have a very wide range that doesn't contain to this flop. So I c-bet for 35 and the mission failed completely because the button decides on a call and then the +1 player decides to jam for around 200 I guess. That also could be a misplay of the day I guess, but yeah, I decide to fold and the player behind me fold as well and the +1 player takes it down, who later told me he had jack 10 offsuit. Well played sir, well played. On to the next one. When I link with ball point. After this hand I'm kinda short and have to rebuy for 300. I'm in for 600 total now and I have around 500 in my stack before we go into the next hand and I pick up a premium. Pocket kings in a big blind. Unfortunately there is no straddle on this time and the undergun player raises to 6. There are 4 callers before it gets to me and of course I squeeze here. I choose a bigger sizing of 45. The under the gun player folds and to my surprise the +1 player is the only player who calls and we go to a flop heads up. The dealer burns and shows us queen 9-5 rainbow. Looks pretty safe to me, we still got the overpair and I c-bet for 40. My opponent wastes no time and sticks in 40 as well and we go to a turn that brings the 6 of hearts. Bringing in the backdoor flush draw, 8-7 got there but nothing too exciting I guess. I think I have to size up now with my overpair and bet 150. That bet seems a little too much for my opponent because he maxes cards and we finally win a hand again. The next one is a very interesting one and I'm really excited on your thoughts, so please share it in the comments what you think on this hand and maybe how you would act in this situation. We are on the button with ace-9 of hearts and there are 3 limps before it gets to me and I raise to 15. Punish the limpers, right? Seems like no punishment to them because all of them decide to call and we go 4 ways to a flop of 8-6-3 with 2 clubs. They check and since we have only a backdoor straight draw, I decide to check it back. We see the 9 of diamonds on the turn which improves us to top pair top kicker. There are 2 flush draws on board now and overall this board looks kinda wet. Now the early position player decides to lead for 30. Both players behind him call and now it's getting interesting. The early position player is an aggressive one in my opinion as well and it seems like the 2 players between us don't have that strong holding since they are just calling on this wet board. So in my mind top pair top kicker should be good here most of the time unless my opponent in early position flopped a set or turned a monster with hands like 10-7 or pocket 6s. I mean that's possible but not so likely to me in this situation, so after some time I decide to stick in a raise, put pressure on my opponents and hopefully take this pot down immediately. I raise to 135. Mission failed again. Early position player decides to call and the middle position player calls as well. Now I'm feeling quite unsure and I really want to see a blank on the river. The dealer burns and shows us the worst card in the deck, the 7 of clubs. Now I'm 100% not good anymore and the early position proves me right because he jams all in for piles. The middle position folds and yeah, I have no other option than to fold as well. The early position player proudly shows 4 deuce of clubs for a rivered flush, which is still kinda risky in my opinion with only the 4 high flush, but okay. The middle position player who folded told me he had 6-7 of diamonds, so he had an open-ended straight flush draw on the turn. He didn't get there as well, but my read was kinda correct. I was good on the turn, put in the raise and folded on the river when I was behind. Anyway, share your opinions in a comment how you would play this hand and now let's go on to the next one. In the following hand we are in middle position with pocket 8s. Keep in mind there is still a random hand jackpot going on and right now 7-4 is the hand to win with to win an extra 50 euro. So in this hand it folds to me and I raise to 7 and the cutoff calls. The button is next to act and he decides to free bet to 41. We are kinda deep, I don't want to give up my pocket pair right now so I call but the cutoff gets out of the way. We are heads up to a flop of Jack 9-7 all diamonds. At the moment I think I have the 8 of diamonds but I'm not really sure. So I check. My opponent decides to check back. We see the deuce of hearts on the turn and I think about betting and I really wanted to bet but I checked my cards before and I recognized my opponent recognized that I had checked my cards. So I can never have a flush right now. At least that's what in my mind in this situation, so I decide to check to my opponent. He now decides to bet, but only for 25. That seems like a fair price to me. We have the 8 of diamonds, we have the flush draw and the gut shot to the straight, so I call and we see the queen of hearts on the river. Not really a great card for us and that's the reason why I checked my opponent. Fortunately for us, he gives up and checks back and shows us indeed 7-4 offsuit. So we take it down with pocket 8s. Feels pretty good and let's go on to the next one. Buckle up for this one guys and girls, I kinda lost my mind in this hand. We are on the hijack with king 7 of hearts and we see a straddle to 5. There are 2 limps before it folds to me and I raise it up to 35. 2 players decide to call and we see a flop of 993 rainbow. Not so much going on for me, but this board shouldn't help my opponents either. So I c-bet and the middle position player calls. I have some history with this opponent. He's a vlog watcher. He told me like 1 week ago that he really likes the videos, that he really likes the vlog. Thank you very much appreciated. Shout out to you, my boy. But he also told me that he didn't see me bluffing very often on the turn and river. So I already have some evil intentions in this hand. We see another 9 on the turn. So it makes it even less likely that my opponent has a 9. After he checks to me, I think I make a little mistake here with my sizing, because I bet 115, really trying to represent an overpair and put pressure on his lower pocket pairs, which he most likely have in this situation, I guess. He goes into the tank, but ultimately decides on a call after 30 seconds. We see another 3 on the river, so there is a full house on board, and he checks to me for a 3rd time. As he said to me like 1 week ago, he never saw me bluffing on rivers, so I really want to prove him wrong and represent strength and some overpairs here. I jam for 180 effective, I have him covered, and he really goes into the tank. At this point you can recognize that I made a bet sizing mistake on the turn. I should bet way smaller on this dry board to make this shove on the river even more expensive for my opponent, so he has a harder time calling it. Anyway, after like 2 minutes, he decides on a call. I turn over my hand and he shows us pocket 10s. Yeah, what can I say? At least I tried to bluff on the river, right? After that hand I have to rebuy again for 250 and I'm in for 850 total now. I have around 400 euro in my stack, a little less, and with this 400 euro I'm short stacked at this table. So you again get an idea on how deep and big this game was playing. Anyway, in the next hand, like 50 minutes later, we pick up ace king offsuit in first position. Of course I raise it up, I raise to 7. The +2 player calls and it folds to the low jack, who decides to squeeze for a massive amount of 60. Side note, the low jack is a very aggressive player who likes to 3-bet pretty huge, and I already saw him calling 4-bets with pocket 9s and ace queen offsuit. This fact definitely kept in my mind before it gets to me again. I definitely want to put in a 4-bet here, especially since I'm out of position. I didn't find a really good 4-bet sizing. If I 4-bet to 160, to 180, I don't even have a 60% pot size bet left in my stack. With the fact in mind that my opponent really likes to 3-bet large with marginal hands and not just premiums, I have no problem to take it down right now, and even if he calls my 4-bet, most of the time I'm not in very bad shape. Still, I'm not really sure about the sizing. After 1 minute or so, I decide to jam for 390 total. It folds to the low jack and he goes into the tank. God thank you, no snap calls, so you don't have aces or kings. But after 1 minute he decides on a call. So we go to a run out in a massive pot and the dealer rolls over 10, 4 deuce with 2 clubs. No help for us, but the turn brings a 5 of clubs, so we add and flush draw with our 2 overcards. But the river is a brick, it comes another 10 and we have to show ace king, and my opponent shows us pocket queens. So we lost this massive flip for another big pot that doesn't go our way. After that hand I'm really done with this session and book my biggest loss ever on this vlog. Oh yeah guys, what can I say? It was the biggest losing session of the vlog so far. Feels terrible. In the game for 850 and out for 0. I was in a loser mood for sure, but I'm not so disappointed with my game, but still this is a massive loss. But that's poker sometimes, right? But Vegas is in 3 weeks and I'm still hyped for this. And if you are hyped as well, please leave a like and subscribe under the channel. Leave a comment down below and I 100% respond. Still feels terrible. Okay guys, have a good one. See you in the next one. Goodbye.